All right, let's jump right in today. We're diving deep into hare coursing in Ireland.
Okay.
And wow, you guys sent some really fascinating stuff,
Yeah.
like this book, Bad Hair Days, by John FITZGERALD, who was an Irish journalist
Hmm.
and anti-coursing activist. And and we've also got some other articles, too, to kind of round out the story.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject, and it's not just a sport.
No.
It's like this whole tradition woven into the fabric of Irish society.
Totally. And it's been causing all these heated debates and legal battles for decades.
Right, exactly.
Like, this is a seriously complex issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's break it down.
Okay.
What exactly is going on here?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to uncover the truth about hare coursing.
Yeah.
We'll follow FITZGERALD's fight against it
Mm-hmm.
and try to understand why it's divided people in Ireland for so long.
And I think by looking at those divisions, we can see like a
Yeah.
bigger picture of how tradition clashes with animal welfare.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and like how much one person can really shake things up.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to these deep-rooted norms.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the book kicks off
Yeah.
this really powerful story about FITZGERALD's first experience with coursing when he was a teenager.
Right.
Just imagine this.
Yeah.
He's hiding out in an old church ruin, taking a break from studying,
Okay.
and he hears these men shouting and dogs barking.
Well, yeah, and so he goes to check it out, and it's where we really see just how brutal coursing can be.
Oh, wow.
He sees these men catch a hare in a net,
Yeah.
and then they just brutally kill it,
Oh, God.
bashing its head against the wall.
That's awful.
He describes seeing blood and crushed dandelions. Like, it's really vivid imagery that just drives home the violence of this whole thing.
Oh, gosh, that's disturbing.
Yeah.
It's like a memory that would stick with you forever.
Right. And it did. It really shaped his whole outlook and why he became so dedicated to fighting this practice.
Boy.
It wasn't just some abstract concept for him.
No.
He experienced this cruelty firsthand, and it was something he couldn't ignore.
You mentioned this wasn't just any hare, right?
Exactly. The Irish mountain hare is
Yeah.
like a direct link to the Ice Age.
Oh, wow.
This creature has been a part of the Irish landscape for thousands of years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so you'd think
Yeah.
that experience in the church would turn anyone against coursing.
Right.
But what FITZGERALD really shows is how deeply rooted this is
Yeah.
in Irish society.
Totally. And he even attends
Yeah.
like a coursing meeting with a friend
Yeah.
to see firsthand what it's all about.
Yeah, and it's quite the spectacle. He
Yeah.
talks about people betting on the hares.
Wow.
Folks dressed up
Letting
in
you
these
know.
elaborate costumes.
Wow.
They even have a slipper who is a person designated to release the greyhounds.
Wow. So there's a whole system in place.
There is, yeah, and he even compares it to this like
Wow.
latter-day tin pot coliseum.
Oh, my God.
So, this is a tradition
Yeah.
passed down through generations. For some, it's a big social event.
So it makes it even harder to challenge something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Even FITZGERALD's family kind of brushed off his concerns at
Yeah.
the beginning.
But he doesn't give up.
No, he doesn't.
He starts this campaign,
Yeah.
writing letters to newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
organizing peaceful protests,
Yeah.
and even travels to the U.S.
Wow.
to raise awareness about this.
Yeah, and
Like a real David and Goliath
it
situation.
really is.
Right.
And, it's not just him out there.
Yeah.
There's this growing movement happening at the same time, both in Ireland and internationally.
Right. So this isn't an isolated incident.
Exactly. It's part of a bigger conversation.
There were attempts to ban hare coursing
Mm-hmm.
way back in the 1970s.
That's right.
Even big names like Michael D. Higgins, who later became the president, were speaking out against it.
Exactly.
And even Mary Robinson, who was involved in the UN,
Yeah.
was part of this movement.
Yeah. It really shows that these ethical concerns have been around for a long time.
Totally.
This wasn't a new debate.
Right, but it's clearly a tough fight
Yeah,
against some powerful and influential people.
absolutely.
Well, it sounds like FITZGERALD found that out the hard way when
Yeah.
he started facing backlash for his activism.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just like online trolls or
Yeah.
whatever.
This was serious.
This was real life.
Yeah, in-person harassment.
Right, this was a small community
Mm-hmm.
and, challenging something so deeply rooted,
Yeah,
like that had consequences.
for sure.
It's kind of scary to think about.
It is. He talks about the bullying he experienced at his job,
Really?
at the local co-op.
Wow.
Pointless tasks,
Yeah.
really physically grueling work,
Oh, gosh.
all orchestrated by this guy he called the fixer.
Wow.
Like they were trying to break him.
That's awful.
Yeah, and it didn't stop there.
Oh, no.
He got these threatening phone calls.
Really?
People spread glass and tacks on the coursing fields.
Oh, my gosh.
It was just this constant atmosphere of fear and intimidation.
So they were really trying to stop him.
Yeah, and that's where things get a bit more complex.
Okay.
Because at the same time Fitzgerald's protesting, there's this rise in sabotage at coursing events.
Oh, wow.
Like actual illegal activity.
Really?
Yeah, Fitzgerald always condemned the violence,
Okay.
but the coursing supporters blamed him and other activists,
I see.
and it just fueled the tension even more.
It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it really is.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Fitzgerald was committed to peaceful protests.
Right.
He wanted to work within the law,
Mm-hmm.
even when it felt like the system was against him.
Yeah.
So what happens next is even more shocking.
What's that?
He gets a visit from the Garda Special Branch.
Oh, wow.
That's the Irish police unit that deals with serious crimes.
Yeah.
This wasn't just like a friendly check-in.
Oh,
This was a full-blown interrogation.
wow.
They accused him of being involved with a sabotage.
Really?
Yeah, they ransacked his house
Oh, my gosh.
and even threatened to bring in his sick father for questioning.
Wow, that's intense.
It was,
Yeah.
they used like intense psychological pressure,
Yeah.
playing on his fear for his dad,
Yeah.
and ultimately they coerced him into signing a false confession.
Wow, he admitted to something he didn't do.
He did.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
And he was innocent.
he was.
That's a huge turning point in the story
Yeah.
because it really highlights how justice can be manipulated,
Right?
especially when there are powerful forces at play.
Absolutely. And thankfully, that's not the end of it.
Yeah, what happened next?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a tough spot to be in.
To be pressured into admitting something you didn't do,
Yeah,
especially with family involved,
yeah,
it's a lot to handle.
yeah. But Fitzgerald quickly realized the seriousness of what he'd done
Yeah.
and immediately retracted the confession
Okay.
and sought help from a solicitor.
Oh, okay. So he had someone in his corner.
He did this. Solicitor Miss Thompson specialized in cases of police misconduct.
Okay, so she knew the ins and outs of this kind of thing.
Yeah, she was really important, providing legal support as he navigated the legal system.
Well, that's good. He had someone looking out for him.
Yeah, and it gets even crazier because he learns that there's this nationwide crackdown happening
Well.
on other anti-coursing activists.
Oh, wow.
People were being arrested under the Offenses Against the State Act.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's the law intended for terrorists.
Right.
Not peaceful protesters.
It was a blatant abuse of power.
Oh, my gosh.
Like Fitzgerald mentions, an insurance broker arrested on his way to Mass.
Seriously.
And a woman detained for over 20 hours.
For protesting hair coursing.
Yeah, based on really weak evidence and aggressive interrogation tactics.
It sounds like they were trying to silence anyone who spoke out against it.
Yeah, it was a very clear attempt to intimidate people.
So what happened with Fitzgerald's case? Did it go to trial?
It did, and
Excellent.
it's almost laughable, the evidence they tried to use against him.
Really?
Yeah, this nonsensical threatening letter. A letter?
Yeah, and a diary entry from a child
What?
that they tried to spin as promoting violence.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, the whole thing was so flimsy.
It's like they were grasping at straws.
There's even this moment where a witness who was supposed to be terrified of this letter can barely remember getting it.
Oh my gosh.
The whole case just falls apart under scrutiny.
So it sounds like they didn't have much of a case.
Not at all.
But it still shows the lengths they were willing to go to.
Exactly, to silence dissent.
Did the trial shed any light on why they were so determined to stop these activists?
Well, it's not explicitly stated in the book,
Okay.
but you get the feeling that there was immense pressure from powerful pro-coursing groups.
I see.
They wanted to protect this tradition.
At all costs.
Yeah, even if it meant bending the rules.
This whole story really touches on so many bigger issues.
It does.
Tradition, power, the right to protest.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It really makes you think.
And we can't forget about the human cost of all of this.
Fitzgerald describes the emotional toll the trial and the harassment took on him.
Yeah.
The public ridiculed the fear for his safety and the impact on his family.
That's something we often forget when we talk about these things.
Right.
The personal sacrifices people make
Yeah.
to stand up for what they believe in.
It's a lonely and difficult path.
Absolutely. But even with all of that,
Yeah,
the campaign against hair coursing kept gaining momentum.
it did.
It's pretty inspiring.
It is.
So what happened next?
Well, there was growing international pressure on Ireland to ban the sport.
Okay.
American animal welfare groups were protesting.
Really?
Yeah, and calling for tourist boycotts.
Oh, wow. So it was starting to get attention on a global scale.
Exactly. It became much harder for the Irish government to ignore.
It's amazing how one man's story could have such a wide impact
It's really a testament to the power of individual activism.
and the interconnectedness of these issues.
Exactly what might seem like a local issue can quickly become global.
Totally. And then there's this turning point in the book where Tony Gregory, who is an independent member of the Irish Parliament,
Right.
introduces a private member's bill to ban hair coursing.
In 1991.
Okay, so it was finally being addressed in a political arena.
Yeah, it was a big step.
What was the reaction to the bill?
Well, it faced fierce opposition from pro-coursing politicians
Of course.
who argued that it was a cherished tradition,
Right.
a part of Irish heritage.
It's that clash between tradition and progress again.
Yeah, playing out on the national stage.
It must have been a really tense time.
Yeah, the stakes were high.
So did Gregory back down?
Not at all. He gave this impassioned speech in Parliament,
Wow.
and he even played a recording of a hare's cries during the debate
Oh, wow.
to really emphasize the cruelty of it.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
It really cut through the political rhetoric and forced people to confront the reality of what was happening.
So it sounds like it was effective.
It was, but unfortunately the bill was ultimately defeated.
Oh.
But you can tell from the book that the tide was turning. Okay.
Public awareness was growing,
Yeah.
and more people were starting to question this tradition.
That's a common thread in this whole story, isn't it?
It is.
That clash between tradition and evolving ethical views. So what did Fitzgerald do after that?
Well, his activism didn't stop there.
Okay.
He actually traveled to New York City
Wow.
to participate in a protest against hair coursing.
Really?
Yeah, during the St. Patrick's Day parade.
Oh, wow.
It was organized by the International Society for Animal Rights.
So this issue was reaching far beyond Ireland's borders.
Yeah, it was becoming an international concern.
That's incredible.
And there's this funny anecdote from that trip.
Oh, what's that?
He had a chance encounter with a famous Irish actor
Really?
who was also there to protest coursing.
Wow, who was it? He doesn't actually name the actor in the book,
Oh.
but it shows how this campaign was attracting support from all kinds of places.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny to think about this
Yeah.
famous actor
Yeah.
in the middle of the St. Patrick's Day parade
Right.
protesting hair coursing.
It's a pretty unexpected scene.
It really shows how far-reaching this issue became.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of celebrities using their platform to raise awareness.
Totally. So after all the trials,
Yeah.
the harassment, the political battles,
Yeah.
where does Fitzgerald end up?
Yeah, there's this really poignant moment at the end of the book
Oh, yeah.
that brings the story full circle.
Okay.
Fitzgerald attends the funeral of the man he saw kill that hare
Oh, wow.
in the church ruin all those years ago.
That's powerful.
It is the man he called Masher Whelan.
Wow. And how did he feel about that?
He reflected on how that one violent act had such a huge impact on his life.
Yeah.
How it sparked his decades-long fight for animal welfare.
It's like a moment of closure.
Yeah, but also bittersweet.
It's amazing after all these years to kind of face the man who started it all.
Right, even in death.
Exactly.
And, he realizes that even though he faced so much opposition,
Yeah.
and the law didn't change as quickly as he wanted, his actions made a difference.
Yeah. It shows that even when you're up against these huge obstacles,
Yeah,
one person can still have an impact.
absolutely. Fitzgerald's story is a powerful example of the impact of individual activism.
Yeah. It's a pretty inspiring story.
Yeah, and I think it really leaves us with a lot to consider.
So after exploring all this material about hair coursing,
Yeah.
what do you think are some of the key takeaways?
Well, for starters, I think the cruelty of hair coursing is undeniable.
Right.
I mean, even people who support it admit that hares are often killed or injured.
And we can't forget about the impact on the hares themselves.
Exactly.
These are living beings.
Right.
Capable of feeling fear and pain.
Absolutely. And I think this story also highlights that tension
Yeah.
between tradition and evolving views on animal welfare.
Right, because hair coursing is so deeply ingrained in Irish culture.
Mm-hmm.
But as we've seen,
Yeah.
that doesn't make it right.
It doesn't. And it's not just an Irish issue either.
Right, it's this global debate
Yeah.
about how we treat animals.
Exactly. And I think Fitzgerald's experience also shows us how power can be misused
Yeah.
to suppress dissent,
Right.
arresting activists under terrorism laws.
Yeah.
That's a pretty chilling example.
It's a good reminder that we need to protect our right to protest
Absolutely.
and hold those in power accountable.
Yeah, no matter the cause.
Exactly. And I think Fitzgerald's commitment to peaceful protest,
Mm-hmm.
even when facing so much pressure, is really inspiring.
Yeah, he never gave up.
Never compromised his values.
Exactly.
So after hearing all of this about the history of hare coursing in Ireland, where do you stand on this issue?
Well, that's for each listener to decide.
Right.
But hopefully this deep dive has given everyone a better understanding of how complex this is.
It really is.
The history, the cultural significance,
Yeah.
the ethical questions,
Right.
and the role of individual activism.
Totally. It's a multifaceted issue with no easy answers.
Yeah, I agree.
It certainly gives us all a lot to think about. And here's a question we didn't get to explore.
Okay.
What role could technology play in all this?
Oh, that's interesting.
Could things like artificial intelligence or robotics offer a way to experience the thrill of the chase without harming real hares?
It's something to ponder as you continue to learn more about this complex issue.
It's a fascinating topic with a lot of different angles to consider.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.